What can you do with a philosophy degree? Let's find out. Welcome to Attic Philosophy. On this channel, we're talking about a whole bunch of philosophical issues, metaphysics, language, logic, the mind, social philosophy. But today, it's graduation for my philosophy students. So I wanted to have a think about, what do you do once you've got this philosophy degree? What can you do with a philosophy degree? And I was thinking about the way in which philosophy is quite an unusual degree to study because, unlike sciences, you don't learn a lot of data or empirical studies on a philosophy degree. You don't do labs. And maybe once you've finished your degree, you start to forget about all the names of philosophers, who said what, whose theories belong to whom. Okay, but that stuff really doesn't matter because what you gain in doing a philosophy degree is skills. That's really what we're trying to teach throughout the philosophy course. Analytical skills, clarity of expression, being able to take somebody else's viewpoint, assess it, work out what the arguments for it might be, what the arguments against it would be, how to construct a clear and concise argument either for or against that viewpoint. Sometimes being able to take opposite points of view and argue each way and using that experience to assess which side of the argument is the strongest. Being able to set out clearly 2 points of view, first one, then the other, and then balancing them up, weighing which is stronger, and from that draw a clear, decisive conclusion. Being able to present that conclusion in a powerful, persuasive way to others, finding the right language to do that. All of these skills are super, super important whatever you do in life. And these are all the things that we focus on throughout that philosophy degree. These are all the things that you've learned over the last 3 years. Okay, so what kinds of jobs can you go into with a philosophy degree? Well, there's loads. I mean, just off the top of my head, thinking about what students have done over the last few years, there's law. Philosophers make great lawyers. There's politics, there's international relations, there's policy, there's teaching, there's research. But look, if I give you a list of things, it's kind of exclusive. What about all those things that aren't on the list? Okay, so rather than giving you a list of suggestions, I want to say with a philosophy degree, you can do anything. When you're applying for a job, how do you convince a potential employer that you've got the skills that they need through having done your philosophy degree? Well, let's look at some of the data. So now I'm going to bore you with some data about how good a philosophy degree is. I've linked to this down in the description. So we can look at various graduate entrance exams, graduate tests that they use in the US. These are large tests of recent graduates moving into graduate school, and we can break them down by different degrees like philosophy, history, maths, science, and see which cohort does the best on average. So first up, we've got the LSAT exam. This is the entrance exam to law schools in the US. Okay, so we break down the average scores by different disciplines. Philosophy comes out on top. It's just above economics, it's above history, it's above English, it's above psychology. Interestingly, it's way, way better than criminal justice degrees. We've got the GMAT exam. This is the one that's used by graduate management and business schools, so MBAs, things like that, again in the US. Here, philosophy does really well again. It comes fourth out of about 35 subjects, okay? So right at the top, you've got physics, then maths, then engineering. Philosophy's just a little way behind, but it's still above things like economics, computer science, chemistry, history, and so on. The really big graduate test in the US is the GRE, okay? Lots of graduates go through this test to go on to graduate programs. For the GRE, philosophy comes out on top and by quite a big margin. So there's different ways we can break down this data. One way is to look at the average GRE score, and then for each discipline, we can look at how far people in that discipline come above or below the average. And looking at this graph here, philosophy comes out way, way, way on top. There's 3 sections to the GRE. There's verbal reasoning, there's analytical writing, and there's quantitative reasoning. Okay, so we can look at how philosophy does against other subjects on each of those. Verbal reasoning, no surprise here, philosophy comes out on top, and it's not just on top, it's on top by a big margin. Analytical writing, again, philosophy comes out on top by a big margin. And what's extra interesting here is that philosophy students do better, quite a lot better, than English and literature students. Okay, so your analytical writing skills are improved more by doing a philosophy degree than they are by studying literature. Quantitative reasoning, so this is not the kind of thing you do an awful lot of on a philosophy degree, it's the kind of thing you do in a science degree, so no surprises, all of the best subjects at that are science subjects. But philosophy does the best out of all the non-science subjects. And it even does better than some science subjects. So philosophers score better than accounting, administration, education, political science, languages, art criticism, public administration, etc. If we look at all the average GRE scores across all 3 of those components put together, philosophy is way out on top. So, when I saw this data for the first time, I was kind of surprised because, I believe that philosophy is a useful thing, but for me, the main reason you study philosophy is because it's such an interesting, intrinsically valuable, enjoyable thing to spend 3 years studying. So it was kind of a nice surprise to discover that on top of that, it's also really practically useful in terms of the skills that you develop in studying it. Okay, so use this stuff when you're applying for jobs. Put this information into your applications. Talk about the personal developments that you went through in your degree, but also use this information to talk about the high-level skills that you developed in studying philosophy. So if you're going out there applying for jobs, good luck. If you're graduating today, massive congratulations. That's all for today. If you've enjoyed this, consider subscribing to the channel, hit the bell to get notifications when I update. I'll see you next time.